What's up, YouTube fans? I'm driving home from my lake house. Had some fun on the way also. But in any event, what I want to talk about in this video, right, is something that I find to be one of the most compelling atheistic arguments, right, when it comes to religion. And by the way, I get that, some of you might not really be interested in my opinion on religion or whatever, so you don't have to watch the video, and I'm not trying to upset anyone. I'm not like trying to, it's all in fun. I'm just talking about this because just because I find it interesting, right? But what I find to be one of the most compelling atheistic arguments, right? Arguments for, no God existing, is just, the question of why would a God exist, right? Why would there be why would a God happen to exist? Why would there be a God, right? And sometimes this is phrased as like a way people will like phrase this oftentimes is they will say, who created God? And the God believers will typically respond like, oh, don't you know, we don't believe anyone created him. He has no cause. And okay, yeah, I know that. I get that. I know that you don't believe that anything created him. I get that you don't believe that he has a cause, right? But that still doesn't explain, though, why would there be a God, right? There wouldn't have to be. Why would there be this perfect thing, right, that is vastly greater than a human, right? In fact, vastly greater than all of the billions of people combined, right? There's billions of us, and somehow able to do all we are and better, and yet with no cause of its own, and supposedly caused everything else, right? So there wasn't even like anything else before it, nor anything else that existed alongside of it. I could more so understand it if, let's say, suppose at the beginning of time, every possible random thing that could exist did exist, right? Every arrangement of matter, etc. But that's generally not what they believe, right? They don't think that like there were airplanes and cars and every conceivable thing just like existing at the beginning of time. They think there was just this one thing, and yet this thing they don't believe has a cause. And somehow, even though there's no cause, no real explanation in his own right of why would he exist, somehow he's this perfect thing that knows everything, can do anything, right? Can do all that humans can do and more, right? And so, I mean, that's not plausible from a statistical standpoint, right? From a statistical standpoint, if this thing has no cause of its own, we would expect it to just be a random thing. It could be any random way if it has no cause of its own, right? So for the first and only thing at the beginning of time to be this perfect thing that knows everything and can do anything, honestly, that's not plausible, right? And so it's interesting how, this is actually not like the most popular argument against the existence of a God. I feel like the most popular argument is like the problem of evil, and people saying like, oh, why do bad things happen? And okay, and you know, I do think that argument is a good argument, at least depending on how it's phrased. But this argument is arguably better, right? This argument is arguably, you know, really this I feel is one of the most, if not the most compelling arguments against the existence of a God, right? That if this thing has no cause of its own, right, why would it just so happen to be that the first and only thing at the beginning of time is this perfect thing, right, that knows everything, can do anything, right, is all, you know, has all of the abilities of the billions of people combined and more. And remember, humans, right, we don't just get our abilities from nothing, right? We have brains, sensory organs, all of that, and it took billions of years to evolve, right? But they're just saying that this thing that single-handedly, not even multiple individuals, but just one individual on his own, right? You know, knows everything, can do anything, right? And now, to be fair, what they might counter towards saying that it's statistically implausible is they would many of them, not all of them, but many of them would invoke the concept of divine simplicity, that they do not believe God is actually structurally complex, but he just has all of these abilities without being complex. And so that, you know, if that were a possibility, that would get you out of the statistical improbability of him himself existing. But that in of itself comes with its own issues, because if it isn't at all like complex, how would it be that it can do all that, you know, the billions of people, all, you know, each of us is highly complex to do all that we do and more, right? Without being complex, right? You know, there's no plausible way of that being the case. You know, the best way that they could try and convince you it is by, you know, talking in very abstract, ambiguous terms, right, to the point of where now we no longer have a very coherent idea to begin with, which is also one of the best, most compelling arguments I would also point out, is just the lack of a very good definition of what a God is supposed to be, right? You know, the problem of evil and like why do bad things happen, you know, depending on how that argument is phrased, it can be a good argument. It does matter, I think, how it's phrased though, but yeah, that can be a good argument also. But I find this argument in some ways more compelling. And like I said, I know that not all of you are going to want to hear my opinion on religion. Look, I'm not trying to upset anyone.
Take exit 23B to merge onto I-55.
That's my GPS. I'm not trying to upset anyone. I'm not trying to tell you that you have to not believe in God. I'm just giving my thoughts. I'm just pointing this out here. I do think that it's points that are hard to argue against, though, I will say. But take with it what you will, you know. Take with it what you will. All right, that's all for now. See you guys.